What ultimately becomes a man who has already been tested, molded, and hardened by the trials of his own choosing. When the world, loud with its criticisms and filled with the mocking voices of others, tries to break someone whose life is not built on the unstable foundation of others' approval, but instead on the quiet strength of pain endured alone and discipline carried out in silence. This is not a casual question. It lies at the very heart of the Sigma male's path through life. Society, following its usual patterns, assumes that shame is a weapon meant to weaken, a tool to strip away individuality and enforce obedience. The common belief is that shaming a man will silence him, strip him of dignity, and lead him in ruins with no chance to rise again. But such a belief reveals the blindness of the crowd. They imagine they're dealing with a fragile man, one easily broken by sharp words and harsh ridicule. In truth, they face someone entirely different, a figure more like a fortress than a vase. His walls are built through long hours of solitude and self-examination. His inner defense is forged by years of personal challenges that no one else imposed. When shame is hurled at him, he does not collapse. Instead, he performs a rare kind of transformation. He takes in the negativity, studies it without fear or anger, and refines it until it becomes fuel for his own advancement. Every insult, every smirk, every attempt to humiliate him does not weaken him, but delivers fresh material for the ongoing construction of his inner strength. While others might stumble under the weight of judgment, trying desperately to defend themselves or lash back in anger, the Sigma male takes a different path. His response is not loud or dramatic. He doesn't fight back with words. Instead, he answers with progress. His growth becomes a statement. His persistence is rebuttal. The jeers of the crowd are not daggers to him. They become a rhythm, driving him deeper into focus and effort. What others meant as poison, he turns into nourishment for his evolution. His strength is mined from places within himself that most people never discover, hidden depths that only solitude and discipline can unlock. This process is not about seeking revenge or proving others wrong in the shallow, attention-seeking sense. It is about embracing a timeless truth. The strongest answer to humiliation is not argument but transformation. He rises to a level where their scorn can no longer reach him. What was meant to corrode his spirit becomes a very material out of which his unshakable character is forged. And when this character takes form in the shape of mastery, success, or inner calm, his critics are silenced, not by confrontation, but by the undeniable evidence of who he has become. So, if you've ever been ridiculed, belittled, or made to feel like you don't matter, take this story as proof of what is possible. Shame has only as much power as you give it. Instead of treating it as a final judgment, see it as raw energy waiting to be redirected. Like the Sigma male, you can convert it into the driving force behind your own transformation. In time, you will stand so far above the noise of your critics that their voices can no longer touch you. And the very stage where others once mocked you may one day become the platform where your hard-earned strength shines brightest. The beginning of this journey requires no spectacle, only a quiet decision made within yourself. 1. Shame as the forge, turning humiliation into strength. The first blow of shame is something everyone recognizes. It strikes hard, bringing with it a burning wave of humiliation that feels like social death. For most people, this sting is crippling. It sparks self-doubt, withdrawal, and frantic efforts to repair one's damaged reputation. Yet, the Sigma male responds differently. To him, shame is not a poison but a spark. Rather than paralyzing, it ignites. It is the very heat that hardens his spirit, the forge where his determination is shaped into something sharper and more resilient. Think of steel becoming a blade. In its raw state, the metal is ordinary and unremarkable. But when subjected to fire, hammered repeatedly, and tempered, it transforms into a weapon of precision and strength. This is exactly how the Sigma male experiences shame. The ridicule of others is a fire. The gossip and insults are the hammer strikes. And the silence that follows, where people assume he is broken, is his period of tempering. In everyday life, this can be seen when a man's venture collapses, inviting mockery from colleagues or friends. While most will hide their failure and abandon their dreams, the Sigma male turns the experience into a kind of advanced training. Instead of drowning in regret, he analyzes every detail with clarity. The poor strategies, the flawed assumptions, the personal weaknesses exposed. His quiet is not surrender. It is a sign of intense recalibration. Behind the scenes, he works harder, studies deeper, and strengthens the very weaknesses shame revealed. When he reemerges, whether with stronger business, refined skills, or undeniable results, the transformation is startling. What others saw as his downfall was actually the beginning of his refinement. 2. The hidden reflection. What mockery reveals about the mockers. There is a striking irony in every attempt to shame someone. It often says more about the person doing the shaming than the one being targeted. Those who try to humiliate the Sigma male unwittingly reveal their own insecurities, fears, and hidden weaknesses. The Sigma male, with his sharp perception, sees this truth clearly. Instead of reacting to the insult, he studies it. Every word, every gesture becomes data. He views mockery not as a wound, but as insight into the character of the one who delivers it. He does not retaliate with angry words or defensive arguments. Instead, he becomes a quiet observer. Each sarcastic jab, every well-timed insult, is logged in his mental archive. He asks himself, why does this person feel the need to demean? Are they threatened by his presence? Are they insecure in their own abilities? By resisting the urge to react emotionally, he robs his critics of satisfaction, while simultaneously gaining intelligence about their true motives. This ability extends beyond professional settings into personal relationships. If a so-called friend belittles his goals or mocks his ambitions, the Sigma male doesn't lash out. He simply makes a mental note. Such mockery becomes a test of loyalty, revealing who genuinely supports him and who secretly resents his growth. In time, he quietly distances himself from those who cannot be trusted, curating his circle with precision. Ironically, the very attempt to shame him ends up working in his favor. It clears his path of toxic influences and strengthens the bonds with those who truly belong in his life. What was meant to cut him down, instead, gives him clarity and power. 3. The power of silence, transforming in the shadows. In today's world, where people often mistake loudness for strength, the Sigma male's silence is easily misinterpreted. Many see it as weakness, surrender, or evidence of defeat. Yet, silence is his greatest strategy. He knows that words can be debated, dismissed, or forgotten, but results cannot be argued with. Instead of engaging in public quarrels or defending himself with noise, he invests his energy into transformation so undeniable that it silences every critic without a single word. Consider the man who suffers a public embarrassment, a failed performance, a lost match, or the loss of a high-profile job. The crowd assumes his story has ended, labeling him a failure. But the Sigma male treats this narrative as nothing more than a backdrop for his eventual resurgence. He withdraws, not to sulk, but to sharpen. The musician practices relentlessly. The athlete trains harder than ever. The professional rebuilds his knowledge and skills. None of this is shared online for sympathy or applause. It is a private, disciplined rebirth. When he finally steps back into the world, the change is dramatic. The once failed musician commands the stage with brilliance. The athlete wins the championship. The professional rises higher than before. His detractors are stunned into silence, realizing too late that their mockery had no lasting power. This is a symphony of silence, a response not in words but in results. It is proof that transformation, carried out quietly and revealed only when complete, is the ultimate rebuttal to shame. 4. Shame reversed. When attempts to break him backfire, the most powerful twist in this cycle comes when the shame hurled at a Sigma male circles back, not as revenge, but as regret that haunts those who once tried to diminish him. Their efforts to weaken him ultimately strengthen him, turning shame into the very foundation of his resilience. What they thought would destroy him, instead forge a fortress around his spirit. Take, for instance, a man who endures a very public divorce, his reputation stained by gossip and accusations. Those around him expect his collapse. They anticipate bitterness, defeat, and a life defined by scandal. Yet, the Sigma male does not let the pain define him. He reflects deeply, learning from his role in the failure, refining his values, and strengthening his emotional boundaries. Over time, he invests in his growth, physically, mentally, financially, and builds a life of balance and quiet confidence. Years later, when those who once mocked him see the man he has become, calm, fulfilled, and thriving, they feel the sting of regret. They realize that their attempts to shame him did not bury him, but force him to evolve into someone even stronger. The peace he carries, the mastery he demonstrates, stands as a silent reminder of their short-sightedness. They were the architects of his resilience, and their role in his transformation leaves them powerless and irrelevant. In the end, their weapon of shame returned to them as the heavy weight of regret. 5. Neutralizing the weapon. Seeing shame for what it truly is. At its essence, shame is not a physical force. It is a psychological tool, effective only if the target accepts it as truth. It works by convincing someone that they are flawed, unworthy, or excluded from belonging because of failure or nonconformity. Its only real strength lies in belief. The Sigma male understands this, and his defense is simple yet profound: recognition. By naming shame for what it is, a tactic, not a truth, he strips it of power. He sees it not as a reflection of his identity, but as an attempt by others to project their own fears, limitations, or need for control. This insight requires emotional intelligence and the ability to detach. Take the example of a child mocked for asking a foolish question. Many would internalize the experience, carrying belief of inferiority into adulthood. But the Sigma male learns to question the source. Why does the person feel the need to shame? Often, the teacher or authority figure reveals more about their own insecurity than the child's worth. In adulthood, this same perspective allows them to resist ridicule when making unconventional choices, like leaving a traditional job to pursue art or craftsmanship. Where others see shame as proof of irresponsibility, he sees projection. Their fear of uncertainty, their jealousy of unfulfilled dreams, their attachment to convention. By reframing shame as someone else's burden, he treats it as background noise, irrelevant static that cannot derail his inner compass. This ability to separate self-worth from external judgment is his quiet superpower. 6. The inner workshop, transforming public mockery into private growth. For the Sigma male, moments of ridicule are not final verdicts. They are raw material. Public embarrassment or criticism does not become a prison. Instead, he carries it into a private sanctuary within his mind, a workshop where he shapes experiences into tools for growth. In this space, there is no audience, no judgment, only deliberate analysis and reconstruction. This workshop is not built for wallowing in self-pity. It is a laboratory where every insult is examined, every critique disassembled. If an insult contains truth, he accepts it as feedback and begins refining himself. If it is baseless, he discards it without a second thought. For instance, a public speaker mocked after a poor presentation does not crumble. In his mental workshop, the Sigma male reviews his performance. Was the delivery weak? Did the structure fail? Did the audience feel disconnected? Each answer becomes a blueprint for improvement. The same applies in business. An entrepreneur laughed at for a failed pitch does not give up. Instead, he sharpens his proposal, strengthens his model, and addresses every weakness highlighted by ridicule. The jeers of the crowd, intended to wound, become free feedback that accelerates his progress. Each cycle of criticism and self-revision transforms him into a stronger, more capable version of himself. By the time he reappears in public, he is no longer a man who was mocked. He is an upgraded self, built quietly and deliberately in his inner workshop. 7. The quiet strength, calmness as a face of resilience. Exposure to repeated attempts at shaming does not break the Sigma male. It teaches him resilience. Over time, he becomes fluent in a language most people never learn, the language of endurance. This fluency shows outwardly as calmness, a deep composure that unsettles those who expect fiery reactions. When the world anticipates anger, tears, or frantic defense, he offers only stillness. Detractors misread this silence as weakness, not realizing it is to quiet a sharpened mind and steady spirit. This calmness is more than self-control. It is strategy. It saves energy, clears the mind, and sharpens perception. Imagine a workplace where a Sigma male is unfairly blamed in a public setting. While others expect him to defend himself passionately or lash out, he remains composed. Inside, he is observing, measuring the motives of his accuser, noting who supports him and who betrays him, calculating his next steps with precision. His silence is not surrender, it is assessment. This unshakable calm rests on deep self-assurance. He knows his worth, and no temporary storm of opinion can erode it. Attempts to shame him are like waves breaking against stone cliffs, loud, forceful, but ultimately futile. The cliff does not roar back. It endures, and in time, it is the waves that wear themselves out. By the moment his critics realize that his calmness masked extraordinary strength, the contest is already over. Their noise is faded, their energy spent, while he remains unmoved, stronger than ever. His calm resilience is not passive. It is a silent language of mastery. 8. The accidental mentors. How opponents shape the strength they dread. There is a striking irony in the life of the Sigma male. Those who intend to belittle or destroy him often become the very forces that refine his strength. Every attempt to shame him, every cruel word, every exclusion becomes a form of resistance training, toughening him for the life ahead. His detractors believe they are breaking him down, but in truth, they serve as unintentional mentors. Each insult is like a weight lifted in the gym of the spirit, each rejection a lesson in independence, each mocking laugh a hammer that forges his resilience. What begins as hostility transforms into the very environment that conditions him into someone far more unshakable than his adversaries ever intended. Take, for example, a young man who is mocked or isolated for his differences, his reserved demeanor, unique interests, or appearance. The bullies aim to force him into conformity or crush his individuality. Yet, for the Sigma male, these experiences plant the seeds of autonomy. Instead of needing approval from the crowd, he learns to validate himself. The pain of exclusion drives him inward, where he builds a self-contained identity and a deeper sense of worth that is not dependent on popularity. Years later, while those same bullies may still crave external validation, the Sigma male has evolved into a man with clarity, inner strength, and a sense of direction they cannot fathom. In the workplace, this pattern repeats itself. A man belittled by senior colleagues, forced to handle trivial assignments, or ridiculed for his ideas is often being put in his place. But the Sigma male uses this so-called oppression as training. He masters the fundamentals through menial tasks, refines his ideas through constant challenge, and learns firsthand what poor leadership looks like. Over time, he rises with skill, discipline, and an iron will forge in fire. The same colleagues who once mocked him may one day find themselves reporting to him, only to realize that their contempt unwittingly crafted his resilience and competence. In trying to break him, they built the very force they now fear. 9. Refusing the script, presenting mastery instead of defeat. Those who attempt to shame someone usually have a clear outcome in mind. They want to witness collapse. They expect bowed heads, broken confidence, and a spirit crushed into submission. The spectacle of another's downfall becomes their source of satisfaction. But the Sigma male refuses to play this role. His greatest act of defiance lies not in retaliating, but in denying them the conclusion they crave. Where they expect weakness, they find strength. Where they anticipate ruin, they see mastery. This transformation is slow, deliberate, and deeply personal. Consider a writer who faces a vicious public critique. The expectation is that he will retreat in despair or lash out in fury. Instead, the Sigma male writer channels the sting into growth. He examines the criticism carefully, separating valid observations from meaningless insults. He uses the constructive elements to sharpen his craft, discarding the rest as irrelevant noise. His next work is not a defensive reaction, but an evolved masterpiece. When it garners praise, the critic is not proven right, but left irrelevant, outpaced by the very person they sought to diminish. The same occurs in personal relationships. After a breakup, a man who is shamed by a partner may be expected to spiral into neediness, bitterness, or emotional collapse. The Sigma male, however, takes a different path. He processes the grief quietly, turning inward to analyze his choices, boundaries, and values. Out of heartbreak comes clarity, self-awareness, and higher standards. When he later emerges strong, grounded, and capable of forming healthier bonds, the partner who shamed him is forced to confront a painful truth. Their cruelty did not break him, it elevated him. Their expectation of weakness becomes a mirror of their own misjudgment, while he stands unbroken and self-possessed. 10. a higher victory, choosing peace over petty revenge. Most people equate overcoming shame with revenge. They imagine witty comebacks, public triumphs, or success flaunted in the faces of those who once mocked them. Such victories, however, are shallow. They are rooted in ego and in dependence on others' acknowledgement. The Sigma male redefines victory entirely. For him, true triumph does not come from defeating his detractors, but from reaching a state where their opinions no longer hold weight. His victory is found in freedom, peace, and self-mastery. Picture a man criticized for his modest upbringing or lack of formal education. Many might pursue wealth and recognition as a way of proving their critics wrong. The Sigma male, however, does not move with such external validation in mind. His drive comes from within. He seeks to master his craft, achieve independence, and live according to his own standards. If success follows, it is a byproduct, not the primary goal. His detractors may one day see him thriving, but he does not need to flaunt his achievements or seek their acknowledgement. Their voices simply no longer matter. His indifference is the purest form of victory. This perspective shifts the battlefield from the external to the internal. The true enemy is not the mocker or critic, but the temptation to doubt himself or harbor bitterness. By choosing growth over resentment and resilience over retaliation, the Sigma male secures an untouchable peace. His life itself becomes proof of his triumph, a life grounded in strength, serenity, and purpose. Unlike revenge, which fades with time, this victory endures because it rests on a foundation no one else can shake: his own character. 11. From resentment to insight, turning shame into a social filter. When handled poorly, shame is like acid. It corrodes the spirit, twisting perspective and poisoning relationships. Many people, once scarred by shame, allow it to harden into cynicism. They begin to mistrust everyone, assume hostility where none exists, and walk through life with a bitterness that shadows every interaction. The Sigma male, however, avoids this slow decay. Instead of letting shame calcify into resentment, he channels the sting of the experience into clarity. For him, moments of humiliation are not emotional scars, but x-rays of human character. In these testing moments, shame exposes the true nature of those around him. He pays attention. Who steps forward to offer support? Who stays respectfully silent? Who relishes his discomfort or joins the mockery? Each reaction is a revelation. For instance, if he suffers financial hardship and is met with ridicule by so-called friends, he doesn't cling to anger. Instead, he treats the moment as information. Their mockery reveals that their loyalty is conditional, tied only to his success. Quietly and without theatrics, he removes such people from the circle. This process of transformation, turning bitterness into clarity, is an act of self-preservation. It allows him to prune his social environment, ensuring that only the trustworthy and supportive remain close. What was meant to humiliate him instead becomes a purification ritual, leaving him surrounded by genuine allies. The sting of shame thus becomes an investment, refining his relationships and strengthening his foundation for future growth. 12. The stage of irony, when mockery becomes applause. The Sigma male's journey often unfolds with cinematic irony. The same spaces where he once endured ridicule often become the very platforms where his excellence is later recognized. Those who once laughed eventually applaud, though by then their approval carries little weight. His path was never about silencing critics or reclaiming their respect. His focus remained inward, driven by the pursuit of mastery and purpose. The applause that comes later is incidental, not essential. Take, for example, an innovator laughed off stage for a failed prototype. The crowd of experts delights in dismissing his vision. Yet instead of obsessing over revenge or vindication, the Sigma male returns to his private lab. He isn't motivated by their laughter, but by the challenge itself. He refines, rebuilds, and solves the problems that first defeated him. Years later, he unveils a perfected creation at the very same event. The crowd, once dismissive, now rises to its feet in admiration. He acknowledges their applause politely, but for him, the real victory occurred long before, alone, when he finally solved the puzzle. This reversal highlights his independence from external validation. While others live for recognition, the Sigma male lives for fulfillment. The shift from ridicule to acclaim is less about vindication than about the outside world catching up to what he already knew. His capability, his triumph, therefore, is unshakable because it was never rooted in their opinions to begin with. 13. Insults as lessons, mining growth from malice. Perhaps the most refined ability in the Sigma male's arsenal is his approach to insults. He treats every attack as a potential mirror. This doesn't mean he accepts every harsh word as truth, but he has the humility to pause and ask, is there something here I can learn? Even in hostility, he searches for seeds of wisdom. If he finds one, he plants it and uses it to grow. If he finds nothing but venom, he discards it without a second thought. For instance, if accused of arrogance, he doesn't react defensively. Instead, he examines the possibility. Could his confidence be misinterpreted? Has he been dismissive of others without realizing it? If he uncovers a genuine blind spot, he addresses it. If not, he lets the insult dissolve into irrelevance. The attacker hoped to wound him, but instead provided feedback that either sharpened his self-awareness or confirmed his path. On the other hand, baseless insults, those aimed at appearance, background, or things outside his control, are filtered out as meaningless noise. This ability requires emotional discipline and a secure ego. By treating negativity as raw material, he ensures nothing is wasted, even enemies, without intending to become unwitting teachers. What they hurl is poison. He transforms into medicine, using each encounter to strengthen his character and sharpen his resilience. Conclusion: the quiet triumph of resilience. What happens when shame is aimed at a man who has learned to process it with discipline, clarity, and strength? The answer is inevitable. It fails to break him. Every attempt to ridicule becomes a catalyst, every insult a lesson, every setback a stepping stone. Instead of collapsing under pressure, he grows sharper, calmer, and more resolved. What was meant to destroy him becomes the very fire that tempers his steel. And this story is not reserved for a rare few. It is an open invitation for anyone who has felt the sting of mockery or the burden of rejection. Each of us has a choice: to allow shame to embitter us, or to use it as fuel for transformation. The Sigma male demonstrates the path forward. It is not easy. It demands courage, patience, and a refusal to be defined by external noise. But the rewards are profound. To walk this path is to build a life of authentic strength, one untouchable by petty insults and immune to shallow approval. In the end, the same voices that once mocked will grow silent, not because you silenced them, but because you rose to a level where their words no longer reach. That is the essence of resilience. A victory so complete, it needs no announcement, only the quiet certainty of a man who has mastered himself. Do these ideas resonate with you? If you found yourself nodding along or reflecting deeply on the traits and experiences we explored in this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts. The Sigma male mindset isn't often talked about openly, and your perspective, whether you identify with it personally or have encountered in others, adds valuable depth to the conversation. Drop a comment below and let me know which part hit home the most for you. Have you seen these traits in yourself or someone you know? Your insights help build a community where authenticity and growth are prioritized over popularity and performance. If you're drawn to this kind of introspective, no-nonsense content around Sigma males, psychological strength, emotional intelligence, and high-value living, there's more waiting for you. Explore the other videos on this channel for deeper dives, actionable insights, and raw truths that cut through the noise. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay sharp, stay grounded, and stay unapologetically real. Until next time.